On Thursday, the FCC is going to vote on net neutrality. And I have some people sending me emails asking me what it is. And I'll sum it up as best I can for you. But what is going to happen Thursday is a direct result of Obama hijacking the effort. Essentially, let me just put it to you this way. Do you own a website? Do you operate a website? If Obama gets his way, you're going to have to get a license for it, just like radio and TV stations get licenses, because the Internet is going to be subject to regulation under Title II, like broadcast facilities are. Cable is not, but over-the-air broadcast. But they can't wait to regulate the Internet, folks. They just can't wait. There's too much freedom out there. There are too many people, quote-unquote, out of control on the Internet, and Obama and the Democrats have got to get it controlled. And the way they're doing it is capitalizing on the stupidity of young people. Maybe stupidity is the wrong word. Ignorance and lack of information resulting from they haven't lived long enough to know. The way net neutrality is being sold to millennials is, and I read these tech bloggers, these little guys, I read them and they hate their cable providers. They hate their website service providers, internet service. They hate them. Just like you were made to hate big oil. And just like you were made to hate big tobacco. Just like you've been oriented to hate big anything. Big retail, big box retail like Walmart. The Democrats' enemies list now includes all of the telecommunications companies and the internet service providers. And the way Obama is targeting support, gaining support from young people on this, he's got them convinced that what he's going to do with net neutrality is punish the people they hate. Does this sound familiar? They're going to go after Comcast, they're going to go after Time Warner, any other telecommunications cell provider, internet service. They're going to really hammer them, and they're going to make sure that they don't overcharge. And they're going to make sure they provide equal access to high speed. The big rich people aren't going to get any more access to high speed than people who can't afford it are. And the government's going to take care of it. And the government's going to punish it. And the government's going to make people to behave right. The government's going to make it all fair. The government's going to make it all equal. And that's what they've been led to believe. The same government that has right in front of these little people's, these young people's faces, blown up the healthcare system, the same government that has made a mockery of healthcare.gov, the same government that has messed up and on the verge of totally destroying, under the guise of transforming it, the best healthcare system in the world, while that is happening. I mean, you can't have any better evidence of the incompetence of bureaucracies to handle massive market maneuvers like healthcare. You can't have a better example of government failure than what they're trying to do with healthcare or anything that Obama has touched in the economy. And yet, in the midst of being able to see all of this failure, in the midst of witnessing all of this government incompetence, despite that, we still have people thinking the government's going to get it right when they start regulating the internet. Now, I'm sorry, folks, you can blame Obama, and I do, and you can blame the FCC and its commissioners, and I do, and you can blame politicians, but ultimately this falls back on the gullibility and the ignorance, dare I say stupidity, of some people, because it's happening right in front of the very government that can't do anything right in terms of improving things that it claims to fix, is eminently trusted to get it right on the internet. And I want to be around when these people have to get licenses for their websites. Do you know what happens when you get a license to own a radio or TV station? You have to prove to the government every 3 years, 5 years, I don't know what it is now, but you have to prove, maybe it's 10, but you have to prove that you are operating responsibly. You have to prove that you were adequately serving the community, blah, 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 blah. The point is, your freedom to operate your website is going to be dependent on the government approving what you do. Do you want somebody like Obama and his regime in charge? The internet is the essence, in terms of the comparison to things elsewhere in America, the essence of independence, liberty, and freedom right now. And it's like, yeah, now, to some of you who might be sensitive to the argument, well, you know what, Rush? Those internet providers, they do charge too much, overcharge. Folks, nobody's going to sit here and make the claim that how best, it's the people who are the best customers of these providers are going to get the best service. It's just the way it is. It's that way in healthcare. You can set up national healthcare all you want, like the Brits did. The rich people don't use it. They've got their own network of hospitals and doctors that have opted out. And it's going to be like that here. No matter how much socialism you have, no matter how much government attempts to make everybody the same, everybody equal, you're never going to get rid of the rich. Look at Obama. If there's ever been a president that's told everybody he's targeting the rich, he's going to get fair, going to get even, the rich are getting richer under Obama, aren't they? The rich, the finance people, the banks, they're getting richer. They get bailed out. I thought Obama was going to get even with these guys. The exact opposite of what these people think the government's going to do for them under net neutrality is what's going to happen. The exact opposite. It's going to get slower. It's going to get more clogged up. And they're going to have less access than they have now. But they have been so conditioned. The left, what does it profit from hatred? It profits, it benefits, it stokes it. And then they come in after they create all this hatred or add to the hatred that already exists, wherever it is. They add to it and they create all this chaos and they gin up all this emotion. And then they come in as the guys wearing the white hats. We're going to make it fair for you. We're going to make it equal for you. We're going to make sure that if you can only afford $15 a month for internet service, your speeds are going to be just as fast as people who are paying $1,000 a month. Well, I'm sorry, it's not going to ever happen. The providers are going to service the people that pay them $1,000 a month before they service the people that pay them $15. It's just the way it is. It's not fair, Mr. Limbaugh. It's not fair. I don't have $1,000. You don't right now, but you might as you get older. Anyway, you can't legislate this kind of stuff, but people live in a never-ending phase or state of blind faith hope that the government can come along and address, redress, and eliminate every injustice out there, be it economic, be it cultural, and they have yet to succeed at it, and yet, we're living in the middle of the absolute most glaring examples of government incompetence as administered by Obama and his administration, and yet, despite the evidence that they don't know what despite they lie. How many times did people hear from Obama, you like your doctor, you keep your doctor. You like your plan, you keep your plan. Your premium's going to come $2,500 down. It didn't. None of it's happened. Everybody's premiums have gone up. Out-of-pocket's gone up. Premiums have gone up. Deductibles have gone up. The number of uninsured has not gone up. Nothing's happened according to the promises. And yet, when Obama comes along and tells them he's going to lower their cable rates, he's going to raise their speeds, he's going to make sure the providers they believe it. They believe it. In the midst of knowing full well they have been lied to, I don't know how many times about Obamacare alone. And maybe I'm making a mistake in assuming they know they've been lied to. Maybe they don't even know that. Maybe my mistake is assuming they are more aware than they are. And in addition to websites needing a license to operate, why you hadn't thought of that? Why else do they want to regulate the internet? You don't think they want to? Net neutrality, that's another one of these bogus titles for an operation. It's the exact opposite. It's not going to be neutral. That's designed to make people think that nobody's going to get special favorite treatment. Nobody's going to get better service. It's designed to lasso and rope people in. It's just like you could call anything you want the Civil Rights Act of 2015. It could pass no matter what's in it. Net neutrality. Yes. Net freedom. Yes. It just means that the big providers can't rip people off anymore. That's what they think it means. And that's all they think it means. Then they have to get their websites registered, and then The regulations. Because, the Obama is incorporating the Federal Election Commission in this. Do you know that? The FEC? Well, because so much of the Internet is perceived to be in-kind campaign contributions. So the FCC and the FEC will now start regulating the Internet. And there will, of course, just as there have been with Obamacare, as there have been waivers, there will be exemptions for certain people from the regulations that are put in place to regulate the Internet. And just as the Obama waivers for Obamacare were designed to shield the absolute disaster that was awaiting everybody upon full implementation, waivers were granted so that Obama would not be punished prior to elections. Waivers were granted to donors. Waivers were granted to individuals and businesses friendly to Obama. Same thing's going to happen with the Internet and how it's regulated. Right now, the Internet has very little regulation at all. It is a single out. I'm stunned. I mean, the ease with which Obama has had in getting so many young people to sign on eagerly to the idea of regulating the Internet, because as long as this is the way it's always worked, and it just amazes me that it keeps working, as long as the regulation of the Internet is designed to punish the rich, then you get people to support it. If the regulation and licensing of the Internet is designed to really sock it to the cable companies and the cellular companies and the Internet service providers, if that's what you're going to do, I am all for it, because I hate my cable company, I hate my cell company, I hate my provider, and as much as you can punish them, I'm all for it. They look at government as being able to wield the power they wish they could wield. Hillary Clinton has been wanting to control the Internet since 1993. Net neutrality is as honest a name as is the Affordable Care Act, or as was the Fairness Doctrine. It's just the latest left-wing power grab. You know how they want to get rid of Fox News? You know how they'd love to get rid of talk radio? Well, they're going to be able to get rid of people and things they don't like on the Internet. That's why they want regulatory control over it. And by the way, the mechanism that they want to utilize to control the Internet falls under the aegis of Title II. Title II dates back to the 1930s. That's how old it is. Let me take a brief time out. I got a couple sound bites on this. Michael Powell, who I think is the son of Colonel Colin Powell. General Powell. He was a former commissioner of the FCC. These are 32. Yeah, I better take a break. We'll have the sound bites when we get back. Don't go away.
This is the big one.
Hi, welcome back. Rush Limbaugh here, the EIB Network. Half my brain tied behind my back just to make it fair. Federal Communications Commission, the Federal Election Commission, toying around with regulating the Internet. Critics from both the FCC and the FEC are warning that speed and freedom of speech are in jeopardy, and they're right. In a joint column, FCC Commissioner member Ajit Pai, one of the two Republicans, and the Federal Election Commission member Lee Goodman lowered the boom on Obama-favored regulations of the Internet. They essentially charge that it'll muck up the freedom the nation has come to expect from the Internet. In one key passage of the column, these two guys wrote on Monday that heavy-handed FCC regulations like those imposed in Europe will significantly slow down Internet speeds. These Internet regulations will deter broadband deployment, depress network investment, and slow broadband speeds. How do we know? Compare Europe, which has had and long had utility-style regulations over the Internet. Compare that with the U.S., which has embraced a light-touch regulatory model. Broadband speeds in the U.S., both wired and wireless, are significantly faster than in Europe. That's true if you've never been. Broadband investment in the U.S. is several multiples of that of Europe. Broadband's reach much wider in the U.S. despite its much lower population density, and the reason is that it's less regulated. It costs less to build up and build out your high-speed network. There are fewer payoffs required. It makes no sense in Europe to do it. That's what's called social justice. Democrat, liberal social justice is never the equalization of people by raising or elevate people at the bottom. It is by lowering people at the top and punishing them. And that's exactly what Obama's net neutrality will do, or seek to do. It will, better stated, what Obama's net neutrality falsely promises people in this country is that these big providers, the cellular companies, the cable companies, the satellite companies, the internet providers, they're going to get hammered finally. They're going to be told that they're overcharging. They're going to be told that they're throttling internet speeds and that they can't do it anymore. And the bourgeois in the United States, yeah, man, you punish them, dude. You suck it to them, dude. You make them pay. What happens? Cable service, satellite service, internet broadband service all get worse. And that's how everything is made fair. Nobody at the bottom has their service elevated. It doesn't work that way. It never does when the left gets hold of things. This is called social justice. Oh, yeah, you bring Netflix into this and you really get these young millennials all worked up. Netflix is out there telling everybody they're going to be one of the big beneficiaries of this because they compete with all these providers and so forth. Anyway, I'm up against it here, but yeah, there it is, the ear-splitting tone, but I'm not through on this yet. Be right back. So I checked the email during the break, and it's the same old question. Rush, I haven't seen any of this. How do you know? How do you know this is what Obama means by net neutrality? I haven't seen any of it. Why do you think you haven't seen any of this? The fact that you haven't seen any of this, you interpret as maybe evidence I don't know what I'm talking about. Why don't you ask yourself why Obama has not released what his regulations and his ideas for net neutrality are? And let me give you a little reminder. How many of you saw the legislation that became Obamacare before it was voted on? Answer, very few of you. Remember Nancy Pelosi? We have to pass it to find out what's in it. Do you think if you had known well in advance everything that was in Obamacare, would you have, in your blanket way, supported it? I'm talking to people, young people here, not you in the audience. I'm talking to young people who are all for net neutrality. I hear from them. I've got these emails. How do you know? How do you know? How do you? I haven't seen any of this. Why haven't you seen it? You haven't seen it because Obama hasn't released it. Obama has not released the details of his plan, his program for net neutrality. That's why everybody's able to make it up whatever they want it to be, just like the Obama campaign in 2008 was. Whatever you want him to be, he is. If he's a great unifier, that's what he's going to be. If he's going to make America loved once, that's what he's going to do. You had no idea who he was. Let me ask you this. Put your thinking caps on. How many times in the last 20 years do you recall various elements of the media saying there's too much democracy in America? There are too many voices. We gotta pare these down. There's too much confusion, too many viewpoints out there. It's confusing to the people. I remember every one of them. I remember me being on the cover of Time magazine in the mid-'90s, and the headline was, "Is Rush Limbaugh bad for America?" Why were they asking that question? Because my point of view was not theirs. Mrs. Clinton in 1998 said the following: "We are all going to have to rethink how we deal with this internet thing because there are all these competing values without any kind of editing function or gatekeeping function. What does it mean to have the right to defend your reputation?" That was Hillary in 1998 sending a dog whistle about getting rid of Matt Drudge. It was in the heat of the Lewinsky event. And she was worried, as were all these libs, and they have been ever since their media monopoly was blown up. There are too many voices. It's too confusing. There are too many points of view. That ought to just offend the hell out of everybody, particularly you young people. It ought to offend you and cause genuine anger among you. Too many viewpoints? We got to whittle them down. We got to get rid of some of these really extreme points of view. It's causing chaos in the countryside. It's causing tumult. It's creating confusion. We've got to... Who are they? Who are they to say there are too many opinions when we have a Constitution and a Bill of Rights, and the First Amendment explains and codifies freedom of speech? My point is, this is something they have been salivating over getting control of, the internet, for 17 to 20 years. Just as like they salivated for control over health care for 50 years. And it's almost a repeat process. Obama's got his massive plan, but nobody's seen it. He won't release it. So everybody's able to create, out of net neutrality, whatever they think it is, what they want it to be. You got Obama administration officials here and there will drop little hints about getting even with the service providers, or making sure that small customers do not have their speeds throttled and cut back, and thereby not reaching their data limit sooner and being charged for more data after they have reached their monthly allotted limit. They've dropped enough hints to make young people think that the real target of net neutrality is once again the big corporations. Yeah, Obama's going to come give them what for. Obama's going to come tame them, just like he did AIG, and just like he did all those fat cat financial company CEOs. Yeah, and if they don't fall in line, we're going to send protesters to their front yards. Yeah, we're going to get even with these people ripping us off. I don't want to have to watch cable TV if I want to watch Breaking Bad. I want to be able to stream it on my phone, and I don't want to be overcharged for it. I want to be able to cut the cord, and I want to make sure that the company providing me with Breaking Bad on my iPhone does not overcharge. And Obama comes along and says, exactly what I'm going to do. Really? You people think it's going to get cheaper? You know, HBO is going to provide a standalone streaming service, HBO Go. To get it now, you have to be a cable or satellite subscriber to HBO. And then the service is so-called free. It isn't, because you have to be a customer now. But HBO is going to cut the cord itself. HBO is going to provide HBO Go streaming only. And one of the biggest surprises awaiting young millennials is how much they're going to charge for it. They can charge pretty much what they are being paid now by each cable customer, and maybe add 20 or 30% to it. And they'll get away with it because HBO is not considered an evil cable company or provider. HBO's got the content. Yeah, HBO, we love HBO. That's where we get all of our sex, and that's where we get all the gay, lesbian stuff, and that's where we get all the drama, and that's where we get Game of Thrones. Yeah, man, let me have it on my phone or my iPad. I don't want to have cable for it. Fine, they're going to charge you for it. And every one of these providers, every one of these content providers that cuts the cord out of cable, out of satellite, they're going to charge, and you're going to end up paying more for all these services you want than you do combined in your cable package. But they're not thinking this far ahead because right now they're being made satisfied and happy. The idea that Obama is going to cut these providers and these cell companies and these telecoms. He's going to cut them down to size finally, just like back in our younger days, folks, they were going to get even with big oil. Yes, they're really going to get even with big tobacco. Yeah, man, they're going to get punished. They're going to have their hats handed to them and everything. Yeah, right on. It never works out the way it's planned. Social justice, making it worse for everybody under the guise of equality or fairness or what have you. And mark my words, here it is, February 24, 2015. That's what's going to happen. And you know something else? For wealthy people, it isn't going to change. They're going to be able to pay whatever they want to get the same service they've got now or even better. And there will be people that will provide it for them. There will always be, no matter what Obama does, no matter how much he regulates it, no matter how much he tries, the wealthy are still going to be able to get whatever download speeds they want. They're going to be able to get whatever services and content provider services they want. They have the ability to pay for it. And as long as they've got the ability to pay for it, there's going to be somebody provided. And so the rich are not going to get shafted. The rich are not going to get stung. The rich are not going to get punished. It's just service for most everybody else is going to deteriorate under the guise of making it equal for everybody. And neutral, yes, net neutrality. Now, these two guys, Ajit Pai, FCC commissioner, he's one of the Republican members, and Lee Goodman of the FEC, warned, they said, that internet freedom works. It is difficult to imagine where we would be today had the government micromanaged the internet for the past 2 decades as it does Amtrak and the U.S. Postal Service. They're going to turn the internet into a utility, folks. Licensed utilities. And then they wrote this. We don't need to shift control of the internet to bureaucracies in Washington. Let's leave the power where it belongs with the American people. When it comes to Americans' ability to access online content or offer political speech online, there isn't anything broken for the government to fix. To paraphrase President Ronald Reagan, internet regulation isn't the solution to a problem. Internet regulation is the problem. All well and good, but I thought the era of Reagan was over. Isn't that what a lot of Republicans have been telling us for a couple of years or longer? Yeah, the era of Reagan that's old-fashioned. Those are old days. Reaganism doesn't apply to the modern era, and yet it always does. Internet regulation, these guys are right. Internet regulation is not the solution to a problem. Internet regulation is going to become the problem. Michael Brown, former commissioner, FCC, Republican, obviously, was on Squawk Box on CNBC today. And one of the co-hosts, Andrew Ross Sorkin, asked him a question, said, one of the things we've all talked about is what an appeal looks like and how long it takes and what that does to investment during that period. Now, we heard from the CEO of AT&T who says that he plans to pull back. Can you speak to that broadly from all of your constituents that you've been talking? What this is assuming that net neutrality becomes law of the land and that there are then lawsuits, appeals to try to stop it. And Michael Powell answers that question.
Litigation with FCC appeals is a pretty long, drawn-out process. I would predict that it's at least 2 and up to 5 years before the rules are fully and finally settled. The original classification decision went all the way to the Supreme Court and took a good 3.5, 4 years. They've understood the law for 15 years, and suddenly that's going to be radically transformed to a new style of regulation, which is going to prompt a whole myriad of questions that are going to await answers, and I think that's going to have an impact on investment choices.
Now, see, they're talking about what's going to happen to the investments of people buying stock and the providers. That's not what interests me about the CNBC. But what interests me in this is, once they put it in there, you're not going to unravel it. And if it takes 2 to 5 years for an appeal to be heard, you're not going to unravel anything, just like you're not going to unravel amnesty once it starts. So there's no, and this is what Obama knows. It's going to be total chaos. He doesn't care. All he knows, healthcare's total chaos. Doesn't care. Bottom line is, he runs it. So then the next question came from Joe Kernan, who said, well, when the adults in the room finally speak up and the FCC chairman, Tom Wheeler, sees what the end result's going to be, won't he say, maybe I need to rethink this? Is it too late for that, or are we just going to go headlong into it? The vote's Thursday. Kernan saying, wait a minute, the FCC commissioner might wake up all of a sudden and see how bad this is. And this is what Powell says to that.
I think they're locked and loaded, and it's too late that they're going to turn back. They're going to vote on Thursday. And when you talk about the moments of shock, I think watching the President of the United States come on a YouTube video and direct the FCC to adopt a very specific regulatory result, I think that was shocking.
Why? Why was that shocking? To see Obama try to take control of us? Why in the world is that shocking? Why shouldn't that be expected by now? Why is it shocking that Obama would do a YouTube video aimed at the very young people we're talking about, demanding that the FCC immediately take over the regulation of the Internet? He doesn't have the authority to do that, just like he doesn't have the authority to grant blanket amnesty on any of this stuff.
Satisfaction guaranteed.
I knew it was going to happen. This subject lit them up out there, folks. Our phone lines are melting with people wanting to get in here and tell me that I don't have the slightest idea what I'm talking about. They're livid out there, right, Snerdley? Some of them, I knew this was going to be the case. Let's go to Cincinnati. Mike, you're first. I'm glad you called. It's great to have you on the program today. Hello.
Great to be here, Rush. I am a young person who disagrees with your presentation of net neutrality. And I don't disagree with politicians and when they take control of a concept like net neutrality, that they change it to mean whatever they think it means, like universal access to broadband or reducing the costs of large corporations, reducing the amount a large corporation like an ISP can charge. But what net neutrality is really about is freedom of information that flows on the Internet.
No, it's not that. You've been made to believe that, but it isn't.
Well, let me show you an example that's happening right now about net neutrality, and that's Netflix. So Netflix is providing services to their customers,
right,
and they pay an agreed amount rate for a certain amount of bandwidth from their servers.
Right.
And their customers pay a certain amount for a certain amount of traffic leaving their connection. Now the ISP sits in the middle and says, wait a second, Netflix is really popular, and I'm not getting paid enough, even though they've agreed to charge a certain amount. And what they're doing is they're seeing that information traveling between Netflix and Netflix's customers, and they're slowing it down. And
why? Why are they? Wait. First place, do you? Now, don't misunderstand my tone here. I'm not trying to sound insulting. I'm genuinely curious. Yep. Do you honestly, really believe that the example you just gave is why the whole subject of net neutrality has come up and why it is going to be implemented?
Whether the Obama administration and the FCC come down with regulation or legislation that meets the original intent, I do think, because Netflix has already been forced to pay ISPs to stop them from limiting access to their services so that their customers can just get what they paid for, get what they already paid for.
Wait a minute, then why do you need, if it's already been rectified, or if somebody's in the process of being punished already for doing this, why then do you need everything else that's going to come at us with net neutrality in order to address this?
Well, and I'm not saying that the FCC should proceed with their decisions without opening up to a public vote, but it's like the ISPs are acting like the mafia of the Internet by shaking down large public companies like Netflix and Amazon, and that cost is passed along to the consumers.
Look,
and now it's
I'm sorry, you have fallen for this hook, line, and sinker, and the reason that you have stems from and I'm not trying to be insulting. It stems from a lack of understanding of simple economics. I've read this example. You have uttered this example almost word for word in how I have read it as a complaint for years. Netflix is used in this example because it's extremely popular with people. Sadly, I'm out of time for this segment, but we will continue.
Rush Limbaugh, America.
What is Netflix? $8 a month? $7.99 a month if you get it like I have it through iTunes. My Apple ID. $8 a month? For crying out loud. And you're complaining about the service? $8 a month? Greetings, welcome back. Views expressed by the host on this program, documented to be almost always right 99.7% of the time. Great to have you with us. Our telephone number, if you want to be on the program, is 800-282-2882, and the email address, lrushbo@eibnet.com. Because we got a lot of people that have run to their telephones to call me and try to correct me and tell me, some of them, that I don't know what I'm talking about. So I knew it was going to happen. I knew that I was going to hit the mother lode with this. And so I'm eager to talk to these people. I just want to say one thing to all of you, and I want to stress here that I'm not trying to irritate you. Now, I don't know how many of you have tuned in here thinking of me what you have heard about me elsewhere. But whatever you do not need to be contentious. There isn't any reason to be. And I have no desire to insult you. I really want all of you to get this right. I want all of you to understand what is happening to our country. Now, the thing that, to all of you, and I'm going to take the calls, and I'm going to gladly and happily engage you in conversation about this, but I want to tell you at the outset that not one of you can argue with me. Now, wait. The reason you can't argue with me is that you don't know what it is. Obama has not released the details of his plan. You may think you know what net neutrality is, but you haven't the slightest idea. He's keeping it secret. You don't know what it is. You may think it's about getting rid or getting even with these mafia ISPs that are making it problematic for you to watch Netflix. You may think that's what this is about. And if you do, God, I wish you'd realize that it's not about that. You've been sold that it's about that to get your support. This is how proponents of big government do this. They boil issues down. They find out what it is about anything they want to take over and control that makes you unhappy. And then they let it be known they're going to fix it for you. So if you are paying Netflix $7.99 a month, and occasionally the content buffers, and you think you're getting ripped off by a mafia middleman slowing or throttling down your feed, $8 a month? Do you realize you can't go to one movie for $8? You can't park. You can't go to a movie. You can't buy popcorn with or without coconut oil. And your jumbo-sized 95-ounce soft drink other than New York City, $8? What do you think you're going to get for $8 a month? Now, that you may think that's cruel, but do you realize there are people paying more than $8 for Netflix, and they're not having these problems that you are? There's certain economic realities about this that are, when I say economic realities, I'm talking about the laws of economics. And I think in this country, economics is woefully mistaught. It's a subject that is largely esoteric to people, and it need not be. Economics is pretty logical. Logic is a problem, though. Logic doesn't allow for opinions. Logic is what it is. And sometimes you don't agree with the end result of logic. But just to give you, we had our last caller, and he's saying, hey, he gave me the Netflix example. I remember reading about it on one of my tech blogs. Some tech blogger was just livid. He was fit to be, almost word for word what our first caller said. So I sent that email off to my economics advisor, Professor Hazlett, who's at Clemson. And he wrote back a long and detailed answer expressing sympathy for the poor man, but explaining why the attitude held by the poor man could end up screwing it for everybody else. And he made the point that any internet service provider is going to have a wide and varied customer base. He's going to have his best customers who pay him the most and expect the best, and he's going to have his customers that pay $15 a month. He says it's only natural the people that pay the provider $1,000, $1,500, $2,000 a month are going to get first dibs on high speed and access. And they happen to be subsidizing service for $15 a month. So the guy paying $15 a month is expecting to get the same service, i.e. speeds and availability, as somebody paying $2,000 a month, and it just doesn't work that way. So Obama and his boy, now this is a simplification of this, but I'm trying to make this as widely, blanketly understood as possible. So the proponents of big government who want to come in and control every aspect of human life that they can and control everything that human beings are interested in, as much of that as they can, they're not stupid. They figure out what it is about any industry you hate. They figure out what it is about any industry that you need and really want, but that you hate about it. And they come in and claim they understand, and they're going to get even, and they're going to fix it for you. And so the whole concept of net neutrality can be reduced in one person's mind to the fact that some mafia internet service providers, the government is going to finally make them play fair, and I'm not going to have my content from Netflix buffered. And they end up supporting net neutrality because they think the people ripping them off, the government's going to really get them even with it. We're going to get even with them and going to punish them and going to make them stop doing it to boot. In the meantime, over here, net neutrality is a 302-page document of regulations that nobody has seen because Obama will not release it. Just like nobody knew what was in Obamacare before it was voted on, except those of us enterprising enough to find it, dig deep, and read the 2,000-plus pages. That's why we knew what was in it. And even after we knew what was in it, spending time on this program telling people what was in it, we got people calling us, telling us we didn't know what we were talking about, even though they had never seen it. Now, our first caller, I'm sympathetic. I'm sympathetic to all of this. And I want it all to work, too. But what we're not talking about deregulation here. We're talking about just the exact opposite. The government, Barack Hussein personally, Hillary Clinton, as far back 1998, personally, openly said they want control over the content of the internet because there's too much, way too much out there in opposition to them. Now, you're tempted to say, I don't know what I'm talking about. I beg you to search your memory banks. Do you remember all the times Obama and his buddies on the left have ripped Fox News? What do you think that's about? They don't like Fox News. They want to try to get rid of Fox News. They think if they could get rid of Fox News, they would. How about me? How many times have you heard me ripped to smithereens by Obama and the Democrat Party over 25 years? They don't like what I have to say, and they, if they could, would regulate me out of my job. And you are helping them when you support stuff like this. You are helping the Barack Obamas and the Democrat Party take over this country and regulate it in such that anybody in opposition to them either ceases to operate or gets punished or both. It is the antithesis of freedom. It is the antithesis of democracy. And it is not going to result in better Netflix service for you. It's going to result in worse Netflix service for you. Because the business is going to become less attractive to invest in. The government's going to regulate as much of it as they can, including revenue. And what's amazing to me, you would think that everyone would know by now how dangerous it is to allow Barack Obama and his minions to access any private sector venture or venue. After 6 years of screwing up everything, how's that global warming thing working out for those of you who believe in it? How's the wind energy business doing for you? Solyndra and those solar, how's that all working out for you? I don't see any, none of what they promise you ever happens. How's that healthcare system working out for you? Have you discovered yet the fine you're going to have to pay? Have you discovered yet that the refund you get from the IRS is going to go to pay your fine for not having health insurance if you decide not to have it? I don't understand why in the world, when it's right in front of your face, what this administration means for freedom, why you want to help them take yours away. Because it's not about whoever is throttling your access to Netflix. They just want you to think that. That's how they're getting your support. They're reducing you to a single issue person and making you think you're a consumer activist for the little guy, when all you are is a willing accomplice to their taking over what is already the freest media enterprise in the world today. And they are not going to increase the freedom that exists and the liberty that exists. They're going to regulate it. But here's another clincher. In addition to the fact that now I'm going to take the calls, as I said, and you can tell me what you think, but you can't argue with me because you don't know what it is. Nobody does. Obama is hiding it. And he has allowed people to think that it is certain things in order to garner their support for it. But here's the other clincher. The FCC has no power to do this. Something like this can only happen legislatively with an act of Congress. Obama's YouTube video demanding that the FCC do this should have sent up red flags to everybody who appreciates liberty and freedom, the Constitution, separation of powers. It should have made everybody quake in their boots. Instead, a bunch of young people applauded it. But Congress has chosen not to act on this, whether or not it had the authority. But Obama cannot, the FCC cannot do this on its own willy-nilly. I was wrong. It's a 330-page set of regulations, not 302, and they've kept it secret. It will be implemented before the details are known. Yet people support it. And I know why. We can't get past this idea that the government is the great equalizer. The government's the great fixer. The government sees injustice, and the government's going to run in there and fix it. Social injustice, economic injustice, political injustice, whatever it is, we have ultimate faith the government's going to make it right, despite the evidence right in front of our faces that they never do get it right. And now, ladies and gentlemen, brief time out. I had intended to be on to other things by now, but I should have known this was going to light up the phones, which I'm glad it did. Sit tight. Don't worry. All the stuff that I thought I'd be on to by now, I'm still going to get to it, folks. As you know, just rest easy. Be
Rush Limbaugh. Simply.
Greetings and welcome back. Rush Limbaugh, having more fun than a human being should be allowed to have. So I checked the email. And there's a bunch of, hey, you didn't really address what your caller said about the Netflix and the mafia internet service providers. You kind of skirted that. I did not. Let me address it now. I'm trying to stay focused, but if you want me to address, if you want me to correct what he thinks, I'll be glad to do it. I'm in this position here to provide you information. I want you to know the truth about it. I've got the only vested interest I have in this is freedom, folks. I don't have any money invested in this. None of this matters to me. The money, the cost, I've got my internet speeds taken care of because I pay for it. It's fine and dandy. I'm fortunate I have the ability to do so. Other than that, I don't have any financial investment in the outcome of this. My investment in this solely is about liberty and human freedom. And my distrust of anybody who wants to take over everything in this country as much as they can and regulate it. They don't know what they're doing. They're not going to make it better. And it scares the hell out of me. I am trying to get everybody up to speed on defending your own freedom. It isn't about me. It isn't about any investment I've got. I couldn't care less about any of that. And I'm not doing this to be provocative. I'm not doing this to get you all ticked off. I'm not doing this to get bunch of people tweeting about me. I really care about freedom and liberty. And I really care when people are about to throw it away because you don't get it back without shedding a lot of blood. And this is so unnecessary. Now, this Netflix example, this is not even about net neutrality. Comcast versus Netflix is not even about net neutrality. And again, I'm going to tell you, you can't argue with me about net neutrality because you don't know what it is. I'll tell you what I told you what I think. I think websites are going to get licensed. I don't see anybody in the tech blogs I read talking about that. They haven't even conceived of that. What do you mean, register my website and get it licensed? Yeah, well, what do you think regulation means? They're going to regulate the content. They're going to regulate what you say. They're going to regulate what your commenters say. You're going to have to get a license to operate a website. And the Federal Election Commission is going to have purview, and they're going to be measuring how much of what happens on your site is an in-kind political contribution. You haven't the slightest idea what these people are planning. You haven't seen it. I do because I know them. But about Netflix and Comcast. The dispute between Netflix and Comcast is not a net neutrality issue because it does not have to do with how Comcast is treating Netflix's traffic once it's on the Comcast broadband network. Instead, it stems from a business dispute that the two companies have over how Netflix is connecting to Comcast network. This is not a net neutrality issue at all. It's a good old private sector competition issue. Netflix is likely hoping to pressure Comcast into offering better terms in its commercial business deal. It's implied that this issue is somehow related to net neutrality in order to get your support, but it isn't related to it at all. This is about Netflix not wanting to pay Comcast any money for delivering broadband. Just like you don't want to pay Netflix any money, just like you don't want to pay Comcast any money, well, Netflix doesn't want to pay Comcast either. Some cable companies have agreed to not demand more money because they realize Netflix attracts a whole lot of customers. Have you seen all the brand new content providers popping up because Netflix is so cheap? There are content providers now offering their content for nothing to get you looped in. Netflix attracts more customers to their system. These are cable companies, and they're not complaining about it. But Comcast, that has nothing to do with net neutrality. FCC Chairman Tom Wheeler has said, and other Internet experts also confirmed, the net neutrality rules originally passed in 2010 were never intended to cover these interconnection business deals, like the deal between Netflix and Comcast. And if you think it is, it's because these are very smart people who have figured out what it is that upsets you about your Internet. And they are telling you that net neutrality will fix your grievance just to get you to support it. But this dispute between Comcast and Netflix is no different than your dispute between yourself and your ISP. You don't want to pay them, and Netflix doesn't want to pay Comcast. And we have a standoff here. Anyway, I got to take a break here, and we'll get back to the phones after this, so don't go away. These people are relentless. So I just checked the email. It's getting fun now. Check the email. So what was your source for what you just said about Comcast and Netflix? I withheld that on purpose, knowing full well that some of you malcontents out there would not trust me. It's CNET, one of your all-time favorite tech websites. CNET, yes sirree. Even CNET says that the Netflix push for neutrality isn't even about net neutrality. All it's about is Netflix trying to pressure Comcast to give them a better and cheaper deal. Netflix doesn't want to pay because they think you're already paying because you're paying Comcast. See, here's the thing, folks. Comcast and other broadband providers do not control your internet traffic end to end. The content that you request, that's a website, YouTube video, I don't know, whatever it is that you have requested to watch, the content travels over several networks before it reaches you and your device. Broadband providers only control the traffic once it's on their network. And the net neutrality people say that it's that piece of the network that net neutrality is designed to make sure stays free and open, and thereby looping you in to thinking net neutrality is all about cheap content arriving uninterrupted on your device. In the meantime, Federal Communications Commission Chairman Tom Wheeler, who is simply Obama's butt boy on this, yesterday again declined to publicly release his aggressive net neutrality proposal prior to a vote. Yeah, nobody can see it before they vote on it. And you think this is good? They've got a 330-page set of regulations that are going to just take over the internet. It'll never be the same, and it's not going to be better in any way, shape, or form. And it's so bad, they don't want to let anybody see it before they vote on it. Despite the fact that the process of adopting such rules was described as irresponsible by Senator Obama in 2007. Can I quote him for you? Senator Obama, your hero, in 2007 said it's irresponsible for the FCC to vote on rules that have not been released to the public. Well, that doesn't mean anything now because Obama's now president. And when he's president, the only thing that does make sense for him, and the only way it is going to happen, is the FCC is going to vote on rules unreleased to the public. Back when he was a senator, it was irresponsible for this to happen. Now that he's president, it's the only way it's going to happen. From thehill.com, just today, a Democrat on the Federal Communications Commission wants to narrow the scope of new net neutrality rules set for a vote on Thursday, the Hill has learned. Mignon Clyburn, this is the daughter of James Clyburn of the Congressional Black Caucasians. Mignon Clyburn, her dad must have really loved steak. Mignon Clyburn? It might have been her mother who really liked steak. Somebody in that family really liked steak. Named her daughter after a cut of, filet mignon. Clyburn. One of the three Democrats in the FCC has asked Chairman Tom Wheeler to roll back some of the restrictions before the full commission votes on them. The request, which Wheeler has yet to respond to, puts the chairman in the awkward position of having to either roll back his proposals or defend the rules and convince Clyburn to back down, but nobody knows the rules. Nobody's seen them. You call this a democracy? And by the way, one other thing, anticipate some other objections. For you young millennials listening to me who are predisposed to disagree with me because of what do you think my brand is, I have no interest in partisan politics. I'm not defending Republicans. To me, this is not a Republican issue. It has nothing to do with this. Is strictly, totally, painfully about trying to hold on to freedom. We're losing it every day. in little bitty clumps. Hell, it's not that we're losing it, we're giving it away. We're giving it away to this agency, that agency. We're giving away our immigration system. We're giving away our economy. My God, we're giving away everything. Now we want to give away our freedom on the internet? This is not partisan to me. I have no interest in this whatsoever. It's totally a liberty and freedom. It's maintaining this country as it was founded issue to me. All right. We go back to the phones, Melbourne, Florida. Mark, great to have you on the program. I'm really glad you waited. And hello, sir.
Hey, how are you doing today, Rush?
I'm great, thank you.
Great. Hey, I'm in 100% total agreement with you. Pay like $9 a month for Netflix. I pay $25 for high-speed DSL internet. I rarely rebuffer, and that's the term that these guys better get used to if this net neutrality goes through, because they'll be rebuffering and rebuffering and rebuffering. My kid can be upstairs on YouTube. I can be downstairs watching Netflix uninterrupted. So it's all about free. What can the government give me? Oh, I want free internet. I want cheap health care. Well, guess what? Neither of those are going to happen. We already know what happened with health care.
Right. And even if it isn't about free, don't forget the class enemy, the class warfare that has been drummed up here. This is a central theme of this. Is hatred for ISPs, hatred for them, just like we hated big tobacco, hated big oil. The left has ginned up all this hatred for the providers of this content and service, and they got people hating them and thinking that the government's going to get even with them with net neutrality, because these little guys can't fight them by themselves, but the government can do it for them, and that's part of the allure as well. As you're also right, I want it free. I shouldn't have to pay to be able to watch I Love Lucy. I shouldn't have to pay for it. And that just blows me away, too. How the people that provide this content and produce it, create it, how they get paid if the users don't want to pay anything for it.
Well, and their technical mental midgetry also comes into play because they really don't understand all the what-fors and whys, what it takes to get the service to them. And when the providers have to add more and more and more servers to absorb all of this cheap internet, it's just going to bog it down. And they're certainly not going to put a bunch of financial capital into more servers just so they can provide better service for less cost.
Exactly.
It's supply and demand.
And that's why, in your estimation, that's why people are going to be seeing the word buffering or rebuffering more and more.
Exactly. I work in IT, so I know it to be true.
You work in IT, so you know it to be true. Well, I'm glad to have your endorsement out there, Mark. I really am.
All right, Rush. You have a great day.
You do the same. To Atlanta next. Johnny, great to have you with us, sir. You're next. Hello.
Hey, Russ. Thanks for having me on. Love the show. So, not saying that this regulation is at all the way to solve any kind of problem. Obviously, we don't know what's in it, so we can't really judge it. But I do think there's one part of this debate that at least merits some attention, and that's the idea of tiered internet. I don't know if you've heard about that. So just to give you an example, let's say a very popular site like Fox News, even your site. So what if the internet companies could be able to regulate traffic to the sites? So, for example, if someone's got basic internet, they try to go to Fox News or your site, and instead of getting the content, a little pop-up comes up and says, hey, you actually don't have access to that site because you don't have one of the tiered plans that includes that site. Shouldn't we be in favor of at least some regulation so that service providers wouldn't be able to restrict access to content across the internet?
Okay, that's a great question. It's an absolutely wonderful, great question. Are you ready for my answer?
I am.
Net neutrality is going to give you exactly what you just described. The government is going to assume the position of determining which sites are being accessed more than others. And if, say, Fox News or RushLimbaugh.com is being read by many more people than, say, MSNBC's site, the government say it's not fair. Too many people or not enough people are accessing MSNBC, so they will order, under the terms of neutrality, they will order Fox News or RushLimbaugh.com throttled and access steered to MSNBC. That's what they want. That's what you just described. You think it's happening now. That is exactly what they're going to do with this.
But isn't the interesting thing, though, is that idea has been kicked around by Internet service providers for years now of providing a service to customers. There would be a tiered service like that. So it wouldn't be the government doing it. It would be the ISPs themselves.
But you're going to have the choice. You'd have the choice to opt in. Look, it's like anything else. If some ISPs want to offer tiered service, it's all up to whether or not they can sell it, make a profit offering it, have enough people sign up to it, and use it as the way it's intended, however that would be. What I'm telling you, Johnny, is, all right, let me throw one more thing in the mix here. I'm not just speaking off the cuff here and off the top of my head. 2 or 3 years ago, I had an occasion to speak with, shall we say, somebody intimately involved with what all of this is about. And what you just described is exactly what this person was trying to get me to pay attention to. This person was trying to warn me that net neutrality actually is going to mean the policing of content. And it really, while you think it's about cost and access to your entertainment, what it really is going to be, and we haven't seen the regulations because they're keeping them under lock and key, 330 pages. What it's really going to be is people in positions of political power making, for example, MSNBC has no audience. Nobody wants to watch them. It's so bad, they're starting to fire everybody now. It's so bad, MSNBC is almost on the verge of announcing that they are going to abandon liberal ideology as their format. Got the story in the stack today. It's that bad. Now, if cable were regulated the way they want to regulate the internet, and if the signal to your TV set arrived the same way it does to your computer, Obama or whoever could look at the fact that MSNBC has got no viewers and see that Fox has all of them and CNN's got something that's not fair, this isn't neutral, this isn't equal, and they would take action to make sure that probably Fox would lose some viewers by having access denied, so that MSNBC, under the guise of that point of view, having an equal right to exposure. But here's the thing, folks, I'm not making this up. When net neutrality, when I was first warned about it by a government official during the Bush administration, when I was first warned about this, I was told that the people dreaming of this are actually dreaming of controlling content, political content, and making sure that one political point of view does not have more exposure than another. Meaning, if there's 50 conservative sites and 10 liberal sites, the 50 conservative sites are going to be punished. Access to them will be limited because it's not fair. And that's what the original warning I received about net neutrality was. All this stuff you're hearing about, limiting your content provider and prices and Netflix, all that's just hullabaloo to get you interested in it, to get you supporting it, because they think they've made you believe they're going to fix your grievance. But it really is about the Democrat Party making sure that there isn't another Rush Limbaugh, making sure that there isn't another Fox News on the internet. It's about making sure they don't lose the battle for content control on the internet. That's what it really is all about. And you can't argue with me because you haven't seen the regs. They're not releasing them. You can argue with me all you want, but you have no ground to stand on. You're in quicksand, you're in a sinkhole because you don't know. And you can tell me I'm full of it and all wet all you want, but I'm not. And you don't know. How do I know? Because I know liberals. I know exactly who they are. I've been victimized by them. I can't tell you how many times over 25 years. I know exactly how they are. I know what their objectives are. I know what their wish list is, and I'm not on it, and neither is Fox News. They want control of the Internet for political, ideological content mix.
The center of
Meeting and surpassing all audience expectations every day, Rush Limbaugh. The EIB Network. Here is Byron in Baltimore. You're next. It's great to have you with us, Byron. Hello.
Thank you so much, Rush. I appreciate the call. My wife and I really enjoy your show so much. I am a senior advisor engineer for a military defense contractor. And while we've been talking a lot about Netflix and so forth, and I appreciate the various viewpoints, and I also appreciate the idea that we really don't know what's in this regulation yet. Given the regime's track record with laws and so forth, my hopes are not good right now that this is good for anybody.
Yeah, this is what I don't understand. With all of the evidence in front of everybody, I mean, did anybody think when Obama was elected he was going to have his wife take over the food industry? A school lunch program? Did anybody think that? No, but he did. Did anybody think that they were health care was going to become the abomination that it was? Everybody had good intentions associated with this. It's right in front of everybody's face what's going to happen here, and yet they don't see the same danger that already we face in other areas. It boggles my mind.
I'd like to suggest something, if I may.
Sure.
And that is that one of the big areas that are going to be impacted by this is the military defense business. Now, why would that be true? I can contrast being an engineer today and being an engineer back in the late 70s. In the late 70s, when I needed information on a transistor, on a spectrum analyzer, whatever it was, had to get the name of the manufacturer, find out where they're located, call them up, talk to a sales guy, have them send me a brochure that could take anywhere from 1 to 2 weeks for me to get before I could even start doing anything with that component or device. Today, if I need information on a spectrum analyzer, or if I need software for a spectrum analyzer, or information on a transistor, I go online, and in 10 minutes I can download whatever I need. Now, I'm one engineer working for one military defense contractor. All the people that do the same kinds of things that I do in the same manner that I do it, and that's a good percentage of that engineering community, are going to be impacted by anything that impedes the flow of information,
right,
good, bad, or indifferent, on the Internet.
Think of your toilet getting stopped up with too much toilet paper. Well, you may not like that analogy, but and then you might, well, it's the military, they're going to have an exemption. See, why should, that's another ball of wax, but I got to take a break. Don't go.
cutting down the liberals.